Your relationships aren't just showing you who others are. They're quantum mirrors reflecting the collapsed state of your own consciousness. Think about it. How many times have you found yourself triggered by the same person, frustrated by the same patterns in relationships, or wonder why dynamics keep repeating in your life? What if I told you these patterns aren't random coincidences or bad luck, but precise quantum reflections of your own collapsed potential? That the people who trigger you most are actually showing you the exact aspects of yourself that remain hidden in your quantum field. Know this: quantum physics, observation collapses possibility into specific reality. In relationships, the same principle applies. What you observe in others is collapsing from a field of infinite potential based on the state of your own consciousness. Let's jump right into how you can use these 4 quantum techniques to expand rather than limit your potential, transforming your most challenging relationships from sources of frustration to gateways of profound self-discovery and growth. As a therapist, I've observed that most approaches to relationship challenges fundamentally misunderstand what's happening at a quantum level. Traditional approaches typically fall into 3 problematic categories. First, there's the blame orientation, focusing on what others are doing wrong and how they need to change. This approach ignores the quantum entanglement between what you're experiencing and your own consciousness, keeping you trapped in the victim pattern. Second, there's the compatibility model, the idea that you just need to find the right person who matches your preferences and values. This approach treats relationships as fixed entities rather than dynamic quantum fields that respond to and reflect your own state of consciousness, which ideally should be evolving on a continuous basis, along with the other person's, which is why this model doesn't even appropriately fit. Third, there's the communication fixation, the belief if you just communicate better, relationship patterns will resolve. While communication does matter, this approach addresses symptoms rather than the quantum source of relationship patterns. I see this with clients all the time. They come to therapy frustrated by recurring relationship patterns, attracting the same kind of partner, having the same argument, feeling unseen in the same ways, and they're exhausted from trying to fix these patterns through conventional means. They've tried communicating better, setting boundaries, choosing different types of people, yet somehow the core patterns persist. That's because they're working at the wrong level of causality. What they're experiencing isn't just psychological. It's quantum. The patterns in their relationships aren't happening to them, they're happening through them. Their relationships are precisely reflecting the collapsed state of their own consciousness, showing them exactly where their potential remains uncollapsed and unexpressed. The good news is that once you understand the quantum nature of relationship patterns, you can use them as precise tools for expanding your consciousness rather than sources of limitation and frustration. To understand how relationships serve as quantum mirrors, we need to understand 3 key principles from quantum psychology. First, the measurement problem. In quantum physics, particles exist as probability waves until measured, at which point they collapse into specific states. In relationships, others serve as measurement devices that collapse your potential into specific expressions based on the resonance between your consciousness and theirs. Second, quantum entanglement. Once particles interact, they remain connected regardless of distance. What changes to one instantly affecting the other? Your relationships are quantum entanglements, connected not just emotionally, but at the field of consciousness itself. Some refer to this as a soul tie. Third, the observer effect. The act of observation changes what's being observed. How you perceive others literally changes how they show up for you, because your perception is collapsing their quantum potential in specific ways based on your own consciousness and bias. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy of people who go looking for trouble and seem to always find or invent it, ironically. What these principles reveal is that your relationships aren't just happening to you, they're extensions of your own consciousness, precisely reflecting your collapsed and uncollapsed potential. As mentioned earlier, they are happening for you and through you. The person who triggers your anger isn't just an angry person you happen to encounter. They're a quantum mirror showing you where anger remains unintegrated in your own consciousness. The partner who can't meet your needs isn't just incompatible. They're reflecting the exact ways you haven't learned to meet your own needs. This doesn't mean you're to blame for others' behavior. It means you're entangled with it at a quantum level. The specific way others show up in your life is not random. They're resonating with and reflecting precise aspects of your own consciousness, both expressed and unexpressed. Understanding this quantum mirroring gives you access to a level of relationship transformation that conventional approaches can't touch. Instead of trying to change others or find different partners, you can use relationships as precise tools for expanding your consciousness and watch as your quantum field transforms in response. The first technique for using quantum mirrors is what I call trigger tracking, a practice that transforms your emotional triggers from sources of reactivity to precise maps of your uncollapsed potential. Start by identifying a relationship dynamic that consistently triggers strong emotions in you. This could be a specific person who pushes your buttons, or a pattern that repeats across different relationships. Next, implement what I call the quantum pause. When triggered, pause and ask yourself, what is this person or situation reflecting about my own consciousness that I haven't fully recognized or integrated? This isn't about blaming yourself for others' behavior. It's about recognizing the quantum entanglement between what triggers you externally and what remains unintegrated internally. When I first started practicing this, I was shocked at how precisely my triggers mapped out disowned aspects of myself. A colleague who I felt was constantly seeking attention reflected my own unexpressed desire for recognition. A friend whose victim mentality frustrated me was mirroring my own unacknowledged tendency to avoid responsibility in specific areas. To tell you this changed my life would be an understatement. By using triggers as quantum maps rather than just emotional reactions, I gained access to aspects of myself that had remained hidden in my uncollapsed potential. For this technique to work, you must approach it with genuine curiosity rather than self-judgment. When you identify a reflection, use the phrase, "This is interesting. What can it tell me?" to maintain the observer perspective that allows quantum shifts to occur. I recommend keeping a quantum mirror journal where you can track your triggers and the reflections they reveal. Over time, you'll start to see precise patterns in how your consciousness is being reflected back to you through relationships. The second technique, projection reclamation. And this is a practice that helps you reclaim the aspects of your potential that you've been projecting onto others rather than embodying and owning yourself. Projection isn't just a psychological defense mechanism. It's a quantum phenomenon where aspects of your uncollapsed potential are experienced as if they exist only in others rather than yourself. Start by identifying 3 qualities you strongly admire in others and 3 qualities you strongly dislike. These polarized reactions are quantum indicators of your uncollapsed potential, showing you aspects of yourself that remain unexpressed or unintegrated. For each quality, ask yourself, how is this quality already present in me, even if in a different form or intensity? Then look for evidence, even subtle evidence of how you already embody this quality in some area of your life. Now, this may take a moment to really dial in, but I promise you, if you can think of any and every quality out there that exists, eventually you'll come up with a handful of examples where you exhibit the quality and a handful of examples where you don't exhibit the quality. Next, implement what I call quantum embodiment. For each projected quality, create a small daily practice of consciously embodying that quality in a safe context. If you project strength onto others while seeing yourself as weak, find one small way to express strength each day. If you project creativity onto others while seeing yourself as logical, incorporate one small creative act into your routine. The key to this is consistency rather than intensity. Small, regular acts of embodiment create new neural pathways that allow your quantum potential to collapse in new ways. Otherwise said, neurons that fire together, wire together, and that's how you create new neural pathways. Throughout this practice, use the phrase both and, not either or, to remind yourself that qualities you see in others can also exist within you. This maintains the superposition state where multiple aspects of your potential can be expressed and celebrated simultaneously rather than being projected outward. I find it helpful to use physical anchors for qualities I'm reclaiming, objects or gestures that remind me to embody certain aspects of myself I've typically projected onto others. These anchors help collapse my potential in new ways throughout the day, not just during formal practice. Now you can carry a small stone in your pocket and reach for your stone, or you can actually use a physical anchor such as putting together 2 of your fingers, or anything that you can think of that would be easy for you to do in the moment to kind of bring you back. Technique 3, Entanglement Mapping. This is a practice that reveals the quantum connections between your relationship patterns and your core beliefs about yourself and reality. Your relationship patterns aren't random. They're quantum entanglements between your consciousness and specific expressions in your external reality. Mapping these entanglements reveals the precise beliefs that are collapsing your potential in limiting ways. Start by identifying a relationship pattern that repeats in your life. Perhaps attracting partners who are emotionally unavailable, friends who take more than give, or colleagues who don't respect your boundaries. Next, use my layering technique to uncover the core belief entangled with this pattern. Ask yourself, for this pattern to keep manifesting, what would I have to believe about myself or about reality? Then ask, and for that belief to be true, what deeper belief would need to support it? Continue this process until you reach one of the 3 core myths that limit people. The worthiness myth, I am not enough. The possibility myth, it's not available to me. The receptivity myth, I cannot connect. Once you've identified one of the 3 core beliefs entangled with your relationship pattern, create what I call a disentanglement statement. This isn't an affirmation. It's a declaration of your intention to release the entanglement between this limiting belief and your relationship field. For example, I recognize my pattern of attracting emotionally unavailable partners is entangled with my belief that I'm not worthy of full presence. I now choose to disentangle these energies and remain open to new possibilities for deep connection. Write this statement and speak it aloud daily for 21 days, the approximate time needed for new neural pathways to begin forming, to cement your neuroplasticity, if you will. During this period, practice what I call quantum noticing, deliberately looking for evidence that contradicts your core belief, no matter how small this evidence is. This creates new observation points that begin to collapse your potential in different ways. The key to this technique is consistency and genuine openness to seeing new evidence. Your quantum field responds not to what you're trying to make happen, but what you're genuinely open to observing. This also works with activating your reticular activation system, which will cause you to notice more and more what you focus your attention on, which goes both positively and negatively, as we all know. The 4th technique is reality revision, a practice that uses the observer effect to deliberately reorient how others show up in your experience. In quantum physics, the act of observation changes what's being observed. In relationships, how you observe others literally influences how they show up for you, because your observation is collapsing their quantum potential in specific ways. Start by selecting a relationship where you'd like to experience a shift. Rather than focusing on what you want the other person to do differently, focus on how you want to observe them differently. Ask yourself, what quality or potential am I not currently seeing in this person? Then make a deliberate decision to look for evidence of this quality, no matter how subtle. Next, implement what I call appreciative observation 3 times daily for just about 30 seconds each time. Focus your attention on genuinely appreciating the quality you want to see more out of this person, even if it's currently only expressed in small ways. This isn't about pretending they're different than they are. It's about shifting your observation to collapse their potential in new ways based on what you choose to focus on. In a way, it's metaphysically nurturing the quality in them that can grow. I've found it helpful to use the phrase, I'm choosing to observe differently, whenever I notice myself falling into habitual habits of perception. This reminds me that observation is a choice that directly influences how quantum potential collapses into my experience of reality. When I feel frustrated with someone, I use the slow mode technique to physiologically downregulate before attempting to observe differently. This creates neurological conditions where new observations become possible, rather than trying to force new perceptions from an emotionally and physiologically triggered state. Remember, this technique isn't about ignoring problems or accepting unacceptable behavior. It's about recognizing your power as an observer in the quantum field of relationships and using that power deliberately rather than unconsciously. As you practice these quantum mirroring techniques, you'll likely encounter resistance, both from yourself and from relationship systems you're a part of. Internal resistance often shows up as the ego's defense mechanisms. Denial, this doesn't apply to me. Projection, it's all their fault. Or intellectualization. I understand this conceptually, but it doesn't feel true. When you notice these defenses arising, use my stop, drop, and roll technique. Stop and recognize that resistance is normal when approaching quantum level change. Drop the need to defend your current perspective or blame others. Roll with the discomfort, allowing it to be present without acting from it. External resistance. comes when relationship systems try to maintain homeostasis. As you change how you show up, others may unconsciously try to pull you back into familiar patterns. This is where the practice of quantum boundaries becomes essential. Unlike conventional boundaries that try to control others' behavior, quantum boundaries are energetic declarations about how you choose to engage with the relationship field. For example, instead of telling someone, "Don't speak to me that way," you might declare, "I'm choosing to engage only with interactions that reflect mutual respect." Then physically remove yourself from the interaction that doesn't meet the standard. This approach acknowledges your power to choose how you participate in the relationship field without trying to control how others show up. Remember, resistance doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means the opposite. You're disrupting established patterns in the quantum field, which is exactly what's needed for transformation to occur. Before we conclude, I want to share the insight that completely transformed my understanding of relationships, an insight that makes quantum mirroring not just a technique for solving problems, but a pathway to accelerate consciousness expansion. The most liberating truth is, your relationships aren't just reflecting your current state of consciousness, they're actively participating in its expansion. We've been taught to think of relationships primarily as sources of connection, support, or companionship, but quantum psychology reveals that relationships serve an even more fundamental purpose. They're consciousness accelerators, designed to show you precisely what remains uncollapsed in your potential, so you can integrate it and evolve. People who trigger you the most aren't obstacles to your growth, they're essential catalysts for it. The patterns that frustrate you aren't random problems, they're precise feedback mechanisms, showing you exactly what aspects of your consciousness are ready for integration. When I truly grasped this, it changed everything. I stopped seeing difficult relationships as problems to solve, and started recognizing them as invitations to evolve. I stopped asking, "Why does this happen to me?" and started asking, "What is this relationship helping me integrate that I couldn't access on my own? What lesson am I missing?" And following my emotions like a tourist to areas I needed to work on to relieve the progressive pain or tension, if you will. Instead of fighting, denying, or stuffing down my feelings, or the other end of the spectrum, resigning or identifying with my misery and patterns, I saw this opportunity to transcend the bullshit once and for all. As someone who has worked through 95% of my known shadow, life is so much better on the other side of this experience if you do it right. There are still people in my life that don't have the full capacity to rise to the occasion, but I find ways to love them and help others deal with their consciousness-related limitations. The quantum mirror isn't just showing you who you are now, it's showing you who you're capable of becoming. Every trigger, every pattern, every challenge in relationships is revealing aspects of your uncollapsed potential that are ready to be integrated into your expressed consciousness. If you've been struggling with recurring relationship patterns, I invite you to experiment with these quantum mirroring techniques. Start with trigger tracking, just to notice what triggers you have, and ask what it might be reflecting about your own uncollapsed potential. Slowly build the rest in, and you'll be amazed. In a matter of months, you can turn into a completely different person according to everybody that deals with you on a daily basis, as well as everyone you're dealing with will transform as well. It's really interesting how these incremental improvements will improve everything in your life. And then one day you wake up and you realize, wow, I'm not fighting the world anymore. So share your insights in the comments below. What patterns have you noticed in your relationship mirrors? What aspects of your potential are being revealed through your most challenging relationships? And I might share some of my personal experiences as well if you guys are interested. Until next time, remember, your relationships aren't just showing you who others are, they're showing you who you're capable of becoming when you recognize them as quantum mirrors rather than fixed realities. Your relationship challenges aren't random problems, they're precise reflections of your next level of consciousness evolution.